Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to continue a discussion from a previous episode on the value of servanthood. When we serve others, when you offer a helping hand, we connect with people, we commit to a specific goal to meet a need. Servanthood is the foundation on which community is built. Servanthood is the glue that holds that community together. Service to others benefits everyone because service to others strengthens everyone. The greatest thing we can do is to reach down and help somebody else, to literally lift another person up. Serving others is one of the best ways to make a difference in someone's life. And when lives are changed, communities are transformed. As I mentioned in a previous discussion, I understand the practical benefits of servanthood, but I was pleasantly surprised by another dimension. I discovered that helping others can also be therapeutic. I recall a very dark season in my life when I lost my first wife to breast cancer. Despite having 2 active children and a job, for months, I simply shut down, barely doing the minimum required. I was stuck, lost, lonely, overwhelmed with a sense of profound sadness. I didn't want to leave the house. I basically went 2 places. I would take the boys to school and I would drive to work. I became pretty much a recluse. I stayed at home as much as possible. I canceled as many activities as I possibly could. I have to be very honest with you. I had no desire at that time, absolutely no desire to be part of anything. It's the stuff that grief can produce. And then one day, seemingly out of the blue, I recalled right after my wife had passed away, someone showed up at our front door with groceries. But by the time I answered the door, the people were gone, but the groceries were there. I remembered thinking, what a nice act, what a kind act. It made me feel good that someone would actually do something like this and didn't wait around to take the credit. And now, several months later, for whatever reason, I'm thinking about that simple act of kindness and I decide to pay it forward. My act was simple. I was still in the midst of grief. I was still in the midst of despair, but for whatever reason, I felt motivated to do the very same thing. So I bought some groceries. I placed the bags at the front door of a neighbor's house. I rang the doorbell and I took off. But the simple act of getting out of the house was huge. I actually enjoyed interacting with people at the grocery store. And I can't explain the feeling of euphoria that I had to do something good for someone else. But the biggest benefit was this. For one morning, for perhaps a couple hours, I didn't cry. I did not focus on my pain during that entire interaction. It's hard to focus on yourself while you're serving someone else. Serving actually became a catalyst for pulling me out of isolation, for temporarily shifting my focus from grieving to giving, and for discovering joy, even if for just a moment. Serving someone else proved to be a pivotal turning point in my life. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." That reminds me of a quote from civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. that puts servanthood within the reach of everyone. King stated that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. Oh, I can hear my father's words right now with a piercing familiarity. Son, my dad would say, make sure your servant's towel is bigger than your ego. Simple. practical, profound. That was my dad, a man of very few words, but when he spoke, you knew to listen. Son, pick up your servant's towel. Use that servant's towel every day. Make sure that servant's towel is bigger than you, bigger than your agenda, bigger than your plans, even bigger than your ego. This made no sense when I was a kid, but today, my dad's sentiments register among the wisest words I've ever heard. I think it's because I've learned a few things since childhood. There's a side to me that loves to boast, loves to be a bit braggy from time to time. And I have to remind myself, in the words of that famous philosopher Anonymous, that ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. My dad, aware of the human desire to be boastful, countered that all the time by reminding me, son, make sure your servant's towel is even bigger than your ego. As an adult, I also see something else. There is an inextricable connection between the servant's towel and influence. I see our influence growing when we serve. We know that the strength of leadership is rooted in influence, our ability to influence people within the sphere of our periphery. That's what determines our impact. We know that without influence, leadership abilities are greatly diminished. Conversely, when our servant's towel is bigger than our agenda, when our servant's towel is bigger than our ambitions, our ego, we are perceived as team players, more concerned about getting the job done and empowering others and willing to encourage others, which generates tremendous influence. As a result, serving others is the prerequisite for effective leadership. Oh, there are lots of books on servant leadership, how to be an effective leader, how to serve and lead simultaneously. I think my father had it right in his very humble, simple, basic application. Serve others, son, regardless of the role, and people will follow you. Why? Because as you serve others, you're growing your influence. I love John Maxwell's work on servant leadership largely because it models my father's thoughts. Maxwell said on one occasion, the first step to leadership is being a servant. And he adds this, servant leadership is when I serve you and add value to you to the extent that your success is my success. Have you ever had a boss who asked you to do something that they were not willing to do? I love to share with my live audiences from time to time that the best leaders I know how to roll up their sleeves. That's a boss who's a helper. That's a supervisor who's adding value. That's a servant in a leadership position. And when you have a leader like that, everyone wins. Author and speaker Simon Sinek takes it a step further. He said this, leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those you charge. Sinek argues that the servant leader is a servant first, who even will eat last. He explains it this way. When you focus on lifting up and serving those around you rather than getting yours, you'll create an environment where your team will want to do the same to the benefit of everyone involved. That's why Simon says that the servant leader eats last. Business consultant Ken Blanchard said, servant leadership is all about making the goals clear and then rolling your sleeves up and doing whatever it takes to help people win. Rolling your sleeves up. It reminds me of legendary UCLA basketball coach John Wooden. You remember Coach Wooden, who won 10 national championships, 7 in a row. However, during the basketball season, he was often seen going into the custodian's room and grabbing a push broom and sweeping his own gym floor. It's hard to find a better example of servant leadership than Coach John Wooden. He lived servant leadership by example, by serving. However, he did leave us with this one quote on the subject. Coach Wooden said, be more concerned with what you can do for others than what others can do for you, and you'll be surprised by the results. That speaks to the spirit of volunteerism. That speaks to the heart of servanthood. Zig Ziglar was fond of saying, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. I love this quote from Marion Wright Edelman. Service is the very purpose of life. It's the rent we pay for living on the planet. In my opinion, the greatest example of servanthood comes from one who walked this earth 2,000 years ago. Jesus said, "For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." So friends, simply stated, when we serve others, the environment changes. Needs are met. People are impacted. Folks feel valued. When we serve others, we're forced out of isolation, gratified and fulfilled, actually finding that our focus shifts from us to others. And in serving, we grow our influence, which strengthens our impact, which establishes our leadership. Friends, we may not be able to change a lot of the problems in the world, but we all have the capacity to help someone, to make another person's day better. As Martin Luther King would say, everybody can be great because anybody can serve. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick, asking the most important question I can ask. How you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.